A gorgeous cocktail waitress, a mother, brutally murdered in her own home. In fact, when the EMTs got there, they couldn't tell if she had been beaten or shot in the head. At first, everyone thought it was a random crime, but in the last hours, prosecutors seek an indictment against her husband, a handsome Vegas City firefighter, a West Point graduate. They say he's the mastermind behind the gruesome attack, that he offered a homeless man $20,000 to beat his once beautiful bride to death. To Robert Langford, the attorney for the firefighter husband, George TFA, what's his defense, Mr. Langford?
His defense is, this is outrageous. You know, I'm really angry that everybody who's been on your show so far just recites what's in that police report, the original police report, which is used to arrest somebody. It is just the highlights of the state's case. And if you look at it with any kind of a critical eye, Nancy, you're going to see that it's insane to think that a West Point graduate, a degree in engineering, a firefighter, somebody who's given back to this community so many times, is going to commit A, a heinous act, and B, an incredibly stupid act. There's no way George TFA did this.
Robert, I agree with you on the character, the reputation of your client, but could you just tell me and put this to rest, why did your client call a homeless guy who happened to have murdered your client's wife 86 times in the weeks leading up to her murder?
Let me rephrase that question. Why did my client call his handyman 86 times in the month? Have you tried to call a handyman in Las Vegas? Have you tried to get hold of your handyman? I have. I've got 3 or 4 handymen, actually. It's impossible to get these guys to come out to work for you. It's difficult. Not to mention the fact he wasn't just the handyman. Not to mention the fact that he had helped Shauna move into her apartment.
So, Robert, let me get this straight. Your client, who is estranged from the victim, the mother of his 8-year-old little girl, just happens to call her killer 86 times in the weeks preceding the murder, just happens to make a spare key that ends up in the killer's hands, just happens to go with the killer to buy a hammer, and he's caught on video, and a hammer is the murder weapon, and it just so happens that the killer bragged to others that he was going to do a hit. Do I have that right?
Well, not entirely. First, let's start with the estranged husband.
And he just happens to fall asleep when cops are coming to question his family and run into a retainer wall going 76 miles an hour.
How do you know that he knew that the police were coming to question his family? Let's talk.
I'm asking you the question, sir. Let's hear your answer.
You did ask me the question. You asked me about the estranged husband. They weren't estranged, Nancy. And in fact,
were they living together?
3 days prior to the murder, they had agreed. I'm taking that as a no. The 2 of them. They were not living together. They were
then they're estranged.
Therapy.
Next.
They weren't estranged. They were getting back together. They were reconciling. That's a matter of court record. They were in therapy, and they were going to do it right. They were going to move back in together under the correct circumstances. Next, the
and
86
that correct
calls,
circumstance would be she would be alive and not bludgeoned to death in the floor with her bra strung up around her neck.
I'm sorry?
That
I
would
haven't
be the
seen
correct
the photos.
circumstances.
I can't comment on that. I haven't seen that evidence. That hasn't been provided to us yet. The 86 calls, I'm sure that's going to be easily explained away. And again, if you've ever tried to get hold of a handyman in Las Vegas,
I have.
Everybody knows. You have? Really?
I tried to get a hold of a handyman, not in Vegas.
Okay, Las Vegas, interesting town.
I'm sure
Secondly,
it's unique. I'm sure all the handymans are very unique there.
Well, sometimes handymen are very difficult to get.
The duplicate key, they running into a retainer wall while asleep on Ambien, driving a diesel truck.
You know, why are you making fun of that? You know, that
I'm not
happens,
making fun of it.
Especially when you're distraught and upset about the death of your wife, having been murdered by somebody, and you're taking Ambien, never having taken that before, can't sleep anyway, and you nod off into a retaining wall. It happens, and it happened here.
Okay, you know what? Granted, that may be true, Mr. Langford, but what I am saying is there are so many, it's a snowball. It starts off with the hammer, then it goes to giving a ride, then they're back, they're making a duplicate key, and it goes on and on and on.
All of the evidence is going to show that they were reconciling.
Here's a news flash, Langford. We're not in court yet. I'm asking about the truth. I'm not asking about how you're going to keep the jury from hearing about it. I'm asking you, what is your answer? And to you, Seth Meyers, you're a clinical psychologist. It always just rubs me the wrong way. It makes the hair go up on the back of my neck when I bring up a fact that is damning and the immediate response is, oh, that's not coming into evidence. I don't care if it's not coming into evidence. This is not the U.S. Supreme Court. This is the Nancy Grace Show. And here, it all comes into evidence.